The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon if you're joining us from the East Coast or other parts of the world. We're going to get started here in just a second, but before we do that, can I do an audio and video check? You should be able to, well, hear my voice, obviously, but also see my screen. And if you use the chat tool within the GoToWebinar software, you should be able to type to me. We're going to be using that chat tool a lot through the presentation. I'm sorry, I mean the questions tool, not the chat tool. We use the questions tool for Q&A. So find that and let me know if you hear me and see the screen. So everybody, just so you know what's going on, we're just waiting on the webinar room to fill up. We're still seeing lots of people shuffling on into the session, so we'll be starting in just a minute or two here. All right, let's get started. Thanks for your patience, everybody. Well, again, good morning, good afternoon if you're joining us from the East Coast. This is Ken Shaw. I'm the CEO of Infrascale. I think some of you probably know me. A good audience this morning. And what we're going to be covering today is our latest product release in EndGuard, which is our new endpoint data protection and device management product. And we'll also be having a sort of a brief glimpse at the vision for the Infrascale platform this year and some of the other changes you'll see coming down the pipeline. If you haven't already, find the questions tool in the GoToWebinar software and use that throughout the presentation. We like to make these as interactive as possible. It makes it way more educational for you, and it makes it more interesting for me. So find the questions tool and start asking your questions. And we'll use that as we go along. I'll answer questions as we go, and then, of course, there'll be a Q&A at the end of the webinar. All right, so let's dive in. So first up, I just want to sort of highlight the new way we're positioning our lineup of products at scale. Some of you got to know us when we were SOS Online Backup. 14 months ago, we rebranded to being Infrascale, and we've become a multi-product line company. And so the three key products for our partners are FileLocker for secure file sharing, EndGuard for secure endpoint backup and device management, and then, of course, SOS Business, which I think probably everybody on the line is using and selling, which is now really going to develop as a dedicated cloud server backup product. If you haven't already, I encourage you to go to the new Infrascale.com website. There's a lot of great resources there for partners, a lot of new content and tools that you can use. Yeah, just generally speaking, all of our resources for partners are across to Infrascale.com. So if we look at the Infrascale platform and the way it now lines up across those three product lines, it looks a little bit like this. So if we think about server and application backup for backup file servers, email servers, database servers, that's the SOS Business product. If we talk about enterprise file sharing in the cloud, that's our file locker product. And then, of course, today we're going to be focusing in heavily on the latest addition to the family, which is EndGuard, which is endpoint data protection and device management. So why is this important, and why should you care about this as an Infrascale partner? So just talking a little bit about the market need. A few sort of key insights we've garnered and that we've collected through close collaboration with many of you. The needs of data protection have changed dramatically in the industry. Endpoint protection is not just about backup. There's now a growing need for managed service providers and IT service providers to reduce their security risk and increase productivity. Endpoints themselves have changed. They're not just corporate laptops anymore. Once upon a time, there were Windows machines that the company owned. It was pretty simple. Today, endpoints are phones, they're tablets, they're iOS, they're Windows Phone, they're Android, there's also BYOD devices. In 2013, for the first time ever, well, not ever, but in the first time since the birth of the personal computer, PC shipments shrank year over year. So the entire computing landscape is changing right before our eyes, and along with it, so too do the needs of the tools that we've got to deploy for our customers to really protect their data. So this next point, requirements have expanded beyond simple backup. Tracking and data loss prevention needs have grown geometrically. What's fueling of this? Well, one of the major trends fueling this is the BYOD movement. So according to Gartner, 40% of companies surveyed plan on supporting BYOD in 2014. Our experience is that the number is actually higher than that. And so, you know, one of my first questions for everybody on the webinar today is, do you have a delivery strategy? Do you have a product pipeline that is a dedicated endpoint protection product that you can offer to your customers? Leaving your customers' endpoints exposed really is not an option. And endpoint protection requires a different strategy and tool set than traditional backup. And so this next graphic really sort of just gives you the before and after picture. And this is a useful tool. If you want to use this in your own presentations for your customers, you can. But the computing landscape of 10 years ago was pretty straightforward. Devices were corporately owned, they were running Windows, they were connecting in via the VPN into the data center, and data protection was straightforward. In this new world that we find ourselves in, you've got complete fragmentation of data on the front end. You've even got fragmentation of data among physical servers and virtual servers. But the need to track devices, to handle heterogeneous operating systems, to handle heterogeneous restores, the need to do things like remote wipe on devices has never been greater. And so the cost of getting it wrong, beyond the points on this slide, the cost of getting it wrong is that your customers will go to somebody else. If you can't provide your customers with robust endpoint protection tools that go beyond simple backup, your customers are going to get it from somewhere. So what we aim to do is arm you with the technology you need to go out and have a best-in-class endpoint data protection tool with built-in advanced features like real-time remote control, device location, device remote wipe, all of which we're going to see a little bit later in the presentation. I want to just pause here, though, and ask you my first question to the audience. I'm going to launch a poll here, and this first question is about how you position the cloud backup service that you offer customers today. So are you primarily positioning your cloud backup service as being a server backup product, backing up application servers or database servers or file servers, or are you primarily promoting your cloud backup service as an endpoint backup tool, a tool to back up laptops, tablets, and phones? All right, we've got results coming in. About 70% of you are saying primarily server backup. Some people are saying I'm 50-50, so I can't answer this. We deliberately wrote the question so you had to pick one, Daniel. So it's about how you primarily position it. So what's the lead use case that you market and sell with? All right, so that's good. So about 70% of you are saying you primarily lead with server. So that's really interesting data. Thank you for that. And I'm thrilled that the GoToWebinar software did that without any hiccups. So getting back to real-time action, there's opportunities for all of you. So those of you who are positioning your cloud backup service today as a server backup product, you need EndGuard so you can protect the rest of the data that your customers have. And up to 40% of companies' data is sitting on endpoints unprotected. So there's a real market opportunity for those of you who are marketing your cloud backup product as a server backup product. For those of you who are marketing your cloud backup product as an endpoint backup product, you're really going to love what you see in EndGuard because it's going to supercharge that experience and give you a cloud backup product that truly stands out in the market. So if you talk to the folks at, say, Gartner or any of the big analyst firms, and you look at the critical requirements of endpoint backup, you get a very dry list of requirements that looks like this. And I'm not going to read through each one of these. You can get the slide deck later, and this is probably good reading for you to give to your customers, right? Because you've got the luminaries of the technology industry saying these are the critical requirements when you're selecting endpoint backup product. The benefit of you using this in your presentations to your customers is that there are very few products on the market that can meet all of these requirements. And so if you're using InfraScale technology with SOS Business and EndGuard coupled together, you can have a product mix that's incredibly differentiated in the market. But running down the list, OS diversity, so supporting multiple platforms, and that's extended things like Android and iPhone. Content flexibility, so being able to handle files on different OSs or even doing bare metal images. Mobile device support for both backup and recovery. Scalability, the ability to handle thousands of users on a single node. Data reduction techniques, so things like doing block level differencing. It's got to have high performance. This thing's got to be able to work on endpoints without significantly diminishing the user experience on that endpoint. Security's got to be baked in. End-to-end encryption's just becoming a must. Excuse me. User experience needs to be simple. Where users have delegated recovery power, they need to be able to interact with the software without needing IT. Obviously, we've advanced back-end server and storage capabilities. Generally, InfraScale takes care of that for you, but for our private cloud customers on the line, you know that we've got those back-end appliance capabilities as well, and then a proven cloud presence. As we go through the presentation, we're going to refer back to this list, and we're going to see that the InfraScale product lineup more than checks all of these boxes and puts you in a very, very strong position vis-a-vis the competition in the market. So now let's get to what I imagine a lot of you are actually here to hear about specifically. Let's talk about EndGuard itself rather than just the endpoint market opportunity. So the tagline here I want to highlight, introducing EndGuard, protect your customers' data where it lives. This is a new concept that's sort of threaded through the EndGuard product. You'll see a lot of the technology is focused not on some of the traditional concepts of data protection, like versioning and archive management, but on what is a new emerging concept of holistic data protection or holistic device protection. So that concepts like remote wipe or geolocation of devices, traditionally an MDM feature, is baked right into EndGuard because the very definition of data protection is changing and morphing because the place where data lives is changing and morphing. So this is how EndGuard fits into our overall platform. Across the top of this slide, we've got the different capabilities of the InfraScale platform. And you can learn more about those through our website or talking to your account manager or jumping on our forums. But with EndGuard specifically, we're focusing on the endpoint protection element. So we covered the problem pretty well. BYOD, among other things, has really fragmented your customers' data. Fragmentation is a very large problem for service providers and MSPs. A given company struggles with this, and they just have to worry about their own employees. Our partners, and MSPs in particular, have that complexity at a much higher level because they have to deal with not only multiple locations and diversified data mixes within one group of employees, but then that's replicated across 50 or 100 or 200 different clients. So the complexity is very large. So what does EndGuard do to address this? Well, firstly, it's a BYOD-friendly endpoint protection solution. So it's built with BYOD in mind. Centralized deployment, report, and real-time control is built into the product, and we're going to see it today. Backs up all major endpoints. So that means Windows and Mac laptops. That means Android phone, tablet. That means iPhone phone and tablet. And then it's got these built-in advanced features, the built-in geo-tracking and remote wipe, and then built-in analytics, which we're going to see in a minute. So just to help you visualize how EndGuard works, you control EndGuard through Dashboard, which you'll all be familiar with. On the front end, we're dealing with this very diverse mix of endpoint devices, which we were just talking about. And then on the back end, data can live either in the InfraScale cloud, which many of today's partners are using, Or if you have your own private cloud infrastructure, you can deploy our appliances into your data center. Or if you're using a third-party cloud like Amazon or Microsoft Azure, you can install our software on those clouds too. This is the sort of the takeaway sheet, so I'm absolutely not going to read through this slide, but this is quite a useful list of all of the capabilities of EndGuard and actually references back to that original list of critical capabilities we saw earlier. So let's turn to the actual product itself and start to actually see it in action. Before we do that, though, I want to ask my second question of the poll. And this question has to do with how many endpoints there are downstream in your business. So, simple rule of thumb, assume one device per human. That's actually a conservative approach, but then multiply the number of customers you've got times the average number of employees. So if you had 100 customers and they've got 100 employees on average, it's 10,000. Or if you've got 50 customers and on average they have 10 employees, it's 500. Now, while you're all filling in that survey, interestingly, it's on average you've got something like 2.3 devices per human when we're talking about endpoints. So when we put phones, tablets, and computers into the mix, it's really not a one-to-one ratio. All right, about half of you have voted. If I can encourage everybody to vote, this is really important data. So far, 36% of you are saying 300 to 400. 20% of you are saying 100 to 200. None of you are saying 200 to 300, which is interesting. About 80% of people have voted. Got a few stragglers. All right, well, we'll call that closed. So the results there were 40% of you said 300 to 400 endpoints, 20% said between 100 and 200, 13 between 50 and 100, and the rest of you were in the 0 to 50 range. Great, thank you very much for that. The data we collect in these webinars is really critical to help to shape our roadmap, and it directly translates into the features that we've built, so appreciate your participation. So going to real time, on the screen here is a screenshot of dashboard, which you would all be familiar with. Firstly, I want to say out of the gate that with EndGuard, no functionality has been taken away from dashboard. So if you haven't bought EndGuard, and we'll talk about pricing, you haven't lost any capabilities at all. EndGuard is all brand new functionality that is available to you within dashboard as an optional purchase. And really the heart of the EndGuard experience is a new user-based view. There's sort of two camps when it comes to backup software. There's guys who are device-oriented, and then there are the guys who are user-oriented. We've always been a user-oriented backup software company in that we believe that it's far easier to manage the data of a human than it is to manage the data of a device with a name that might be hard to decipher. So with EndGuard, you've got this user-level view that gives you analytics at the user level, that it lets you manipulate and manage at the user level, and dramatically simplifies the management of your downstream data sets and allows you to manage those using that human construct rather than a bunch of anonymous devices. Daniel Wynn's got a question. Once purchased, can a client be converted to start from scratch for those endpoints? Daniel, I don't quite understand the question. If you could perhaps rephrase, I'll do my best to answer that. And so if we look across the top of this new user view, firstly, you'd be familiar with both the traffic light system for alerts. We've always provided this at the top level dashboard. So in a partner, you can see this right across your entire environment. But you can now also see it for an individual user, which is quite handy. Also, the analytics modules, which you'd be familiar with, are available at the user level, and some new usage stats. If you look across these tabs, you've got general info with a new quick edit base, device management, loss prevention, analytics, device map. And so it's no surprise what sits behind each of those tabs, and we're going to look at some of these in this presentation. One of my favorite views is the new analytics view. So on screen you'll see what is essentially a calendar. It's modeled after an Outlook calendar where you can see all of the devices within the context you're analyzing laid out over time. You can get an immediate status of the health of the backups and of each of those devices. So the green obviously means that everything's okay. In this case of this device MacBook, there were some errors and then a warning, so I need to do something about that. In this case at the bottom, there was an error and then it fixed itself. So The analytics view, really just about simplifying management and allowing you at a quick glance to see what's going on in your downstream and then respond accordingly. Of course, you can export this to Excel and you can subscribe to email-based delivery of the same underlying data. On the data loss prevention tab, we've got some new features that are very unique to EndGuard, and the big one I want to call out is wipe device. Now, the inclusion of data description is potentially confusing in the context of an endpoint backup problem, which is why we talk about EndGuard as endpoint data protection and device management. Because the concept of data protection is a little bit broader than backup. It's also about protecting your clients from data loss and data theft. So the inclusion of remote wipe removes the need for you to have separate MDM software or separate device management software to brick a device if it's been lost or stolen. And that's part of our new remote control suite, which is also core to EndGuard. We'll see this in action in a couple of slides' time. A second great use of the new real-time remote control we've implemented is our geolocation services. So that from a map, you can immediately see where devices are connecting from and locate devices. So this also then starts to go into questions of, well, firstly, obviously, locating a device if it's been stolen, but also providing very useful planning and audit data for companies so they know where their employees are working from. And it's also got interesting uses with regard to compliance. But where this is going as a function, and what we're super excited about, is the concept of geofencing and meshing geofencing in with our monitoring and trigger-based actions. So put another way, imagine that on this screen I can draw a box around California and say, if the laptops in my company leave California, pop a red alert. Or imagine I can draw a box around California and say, if the laptops leave this box, trigger a remote wipe. And so very soon within EndGuard, you're going to see the inclusion of geofencing capabilities. Armando asks, will this map work in Jamaica? Absolutely. We actually use Bing Maps under the hood, and so that's from Microsoft, obviously, and works very well everywhere in the world. We evaluated Google Maps, but Bing Maps gave us a better solution. All right. So we're trying something new today. We've embedded some videos showing some of the more complicated features of EndGuard right into the PowerPoint presentation. So this screen here, in a second, is actually going to turn into a video demo. And so what we're going to demo in this video, let me pause, is we're focusing on the real-time remote control capabilities of EndGuard. For those of you who are familiar with the way Dashboard has worked up until now, you could use Dashboard to set policies and perform various tasks in the cloud. But it could be up to 24 hours before the client connected to the cloud and received its instructions. With EndGuard, we've overhauled this infrastructure and implemented push-based real-time communication between the cloud and the endpoint, no matter what that endpoint is. That then begins to really simplify the management of all these endpoints, because you no longer need to remote into the machine to do a lot of basic administrative tasks. You just do it all from the Dashboard application. So in this video, we're going to see us remotely upgrading an installation from version 5.10 to 5.11. We're then going to trigger a backup now in real time, and we're going to watch it run, and then we're going to verify the results of the monitoring system. All right, hopefully this works. Okay, so on screen here, you'll see this is me clicking through EndGuard for a particular user, and I'm on the device management tab here. What you'll first notice is that I'm working on Lasso Demo 7, and it is on version 5.10 of the software. So I then hit upgrade, and you'll notice this green bubble in the top right telling me that the command was received by the endpoint. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, you'll see that Lasso Demo 7 went gray there for a second. I'll actually just roll the video back a little bit so we can see that. So what I want to highlight here is that some of the devices have a green light next to them. This means we have real-time remote control enabled. Some of them have a gray light next to them, which means we've recently had real-time remote control, but they're not connected right now. And after I clicked upgrade, the Lasso Demo 7 machine I was working on actually went gray for a second because the upgrade was running. But then on refresh, we see that Lasso Demo 7 is now running version 5.11. That seems like a pretty a pretty innocuous demonstration, but this has been a major pain point for a lot of our partners, remotely upgrading the software without needing to do anything on the customer side. So we're now going to trigger a backup, and we'll see the same notification bubbles appear in the top right-hand corner. There we go. Backup started. Backup's finished. And now we'll go across to the monitoring view and just verify that that backup ran as we thought it would. And there we see it. It's the third one down in the monitoring view. So that backup's completed with no errors. We did all of that via dashboard with no need to leave the application, no need to do remote desktop, no need to go anywhere else. Dramatically simplified operation. Quick question from me to everybody in the audience. How's the playback on the video? Is it easy enough to see and understand? We're demoing this use of inline video, and it'd be great to have some customer feedback. A little bit grainy. All right, good. Thanks for that, everybody. Okay. So what else have we built into EndGuard? Well, the next one, again, a little bit of a nerdy topic and demonstration, but something that we're super excited about. Deploying backup software to 100 devices is a major pain. We all know this. We've all dealt with this. So we looked at all of the major vendors, from Commvault to Symantec to things that IBM and HP have done, EMC, to try and see if anybody had come up with a simple way to deploy backup software to 100 devices at once. And quite surprisingly, the answer is no. The best one we came across involved complicated editing of Active Directory group policy objects and the manual manipulation of multiple login scripts. And we thought that we would have a crack at coming up with something simpler. So first on screen here, we've got what's a new mass deployment wizard. And you'll find this inside Dashboard. And on the next slide, I'm going to do a video of how this works in action. But the concept here is this. For the first time ever, you'll build your own custom installers. So right now, you download a pre-baked installer for the OPRM, and you install it on a machine however you fancy. We're now starting to prescribe that we recommend Active Directory. That's one catch to the use of this technology. However, you can now build your own MSI in the cloud, in Dashboard, specific to your customers, specific to a domain, with a policy built in. So you can see here in this screenshot is I've built a bunch of MSIs with different policies baked in by default, which I can then download and roll out. And so I'm going to pop another survey now. I know I'm spamming you with these, but I want to know what percentage of our partners are using Active Directory with their customers. So the question is, what percentage of your customers are using Active Directory? Right now, we've got what is clicked on 80 to 100% so far. And this is really important information. So for those of you who didn't answer the previous poll, I'd love it if you could answer this poll. And just so you know how what this data means, if a lot of you have problems with the fact that we've coupled this deployment technology with Active Directory, then we'll be doing R&D to support other deployment mechanisms. But if Active Directory's got enough install base, then we'll stick with Active Directory, which is what we've built so far. All right, so right now we've got 53% of you saying that you're almost exclusively Active Directory, 13% saying in the 60 to 80% range. 70% of people have voted, 73% of people have voted. All right, I'll stop that because these must be getting annoying. Thanks for that. All right, so on this slide, we're going to have a look at a video of what intelligent deployment means. And so the dream is be able to deploy to 100 devices in under 10 minutes. So let's see how we go with that. Here we are in an Active Directory tree, and you can see, it's a little bit small, but you can see here we've got 5 devices in this virtual lab and 5 users set up as users in the Active Directory environment. Now, I've logged in here to a generically branded company dashboard, and when I go through to view backup accounts, we'll see that there's only one account that's been created, which is the administrator account. When I go to the View Devices view, you'll see that there are no devices in this system. I go to Add Device, which brings me back to my MSI deployment wizard. I'm going to select the default policy. I'm going to name the MSI. And then with a few other settings here that we're going to tweak. I'm going to set a default user quota of 60 gigabytes, and then I'm just going to type in, basically this is a username template that you can set. Generate my MSI, and now I've got my own custom-built MSI that I'm downloading. So no longer is this a generic OVRM package, but this is my custom MSI with my custom policy. All right, so now we go back to Active Directory. I'm going to set up a group policy object for software installation. And we've got key articles on how to do this, but as you can see here on screen, it's literally only a few steps. I select the custom MSI, I assign it to policy, all right, that's all checked out. I drag and drop it to the headquarters group. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is restart all the laptops in that headquarters group. So we set up 5 different computers to act just like employees. So now that we've assigned the MSI and group policy, we can start rebooting all the machines. So you can see here on screen, Windows are shutting down. There's a Windows 7 professional machine. Now, in the background right now, the backup software is being installed on this laptop. And it's not being installed, but because it's a custom MSI, it's reaching out to the cloud, asking the cloud which policy to apply, asking the cloud if a backup account exists. If it doesn't, it's creating that backup account. It's then applying that policy and scheduling a backup. So all of the steps that you would previously have done manually or previously have had to go out to a remote site to do have been completely automated and just occurred during that boot cycle. I probably could have edited this part of the video down a little bit. All right, so now when we log into the computer, we then push forward a little bit in the video. Now we're back in dashboard. This is good. So previously we saw there were no accounts on this in the system, and there were no devices in the system. Let's go back to the backup accounts view. All of a sudden we have an account. Now we didn't create that account. The MSI created that account on the fly, and it matches the username mask that we set up. If we go to the devices view, we'll see that we now have a device running 5.11 with the policy all documents already assigned. So that device is good to go. Now that was only one device, which isn't particularly challenging. So now let's go ahead and let's reboot some of our other machines. Now we're going to reboot a Windows XP machine and see how easy this is. And of course this is going to work on any Windows workstation environment back to Windows XP. While this is running, I want to talk about a new concept that we've implemented, which is silent on operation. So the default with EndGuard is that the application runs completely silently as far as the user is concerned. So what I mean by that is previously, when you installed the OVRM, it installed icon, it installed task tray entry, and the user knew it was there. With EndGuard, one of the, we think, really powerful features is that it installed completely silently, right? Install me, do that restart cycle. So the user had no idea that we installed it, but it then also runs completely silently. So this provides truly IT admin controlled data protection. There's an option to make it user visible. So on that on the build MSI screen, there was a checkbox there that said user visible. And if you check that, you'll get the exact same behavior you're familiar with. But the default is to run silently behind the scenes, providing you with device location capabilities, remote wipe capabilities, and of course backup capabilities. So coming back to the demo, you'll see here in dashboard now that there are 5 accounts created, each with one device. All we did to do that is we restarted those machines. So if that was 100 employees who had come into work the next day and booted their machine, EndGuard just rolls out. It just automatically creates their account, assigns a policy, and starts backing up completely silently without the user knowing about it or being able to interfere with it or break it. Question here from Roy. I see that you're giving all these endpoints, you're giving 60 gigs to. Does this mean that your company will have 300 gigabytes of space assigned to that company? Roy, yes, in this scenario it would. You don't need to do 6 gigs. You can set that to whatever you want. Daniel says, this is great for Active Directory, but how about a full remote company, no server, what tools to build site-specific install package? Daniel, we're investigating that very question. If you've got some ideas, I'd love you to email me directly at ken@infrascale.com. Active Directory is what we've built now, and we're looking to apply which deployment technologies our partners would like us to tackle next. Just looking forward through this video, I don't think there are any particularly other things to highlight. No, that's the majority of what we need in the video. So here, in that video, we demonstrated building a custom MSI, silent installation, silent run, automatic provisioning of accounts, automatic setup of accounts, geolocation associated with accounts. The only thing I didn't show in that was remote wipe. The reason is the remote wipe's a bit dicey to demo. For goodness sake, if you're going to experiment with remote wipe, do it on a machine where the data is backed up. All right. So pushing ahead in the interest of time. So I mentioned briefly task delegation. Basically, EndGuard has 2 modes of operation, sort of silent and deadly and completely user controllable. In the silent mode, you control that the user has no idea it's there. So if you sell it to your customers, you're selling it to your customers as a managed service. Your customers are deploying it, but the actual employees don't know. The primary purpose of that is so they can't muck with the backup settings, frankly. EndGuard is about full device protection, so it's really important that the employees can't change the policy or disable it. Also, the geolocation functionality is something that not all companies will advertise that is running on those devices. So that's another reason to use the silent installation method. If you don't want to run it silently, then you can expose the interfaces to the customer with your own branding, of course. This has got EndGuard branding on it, but all of the rebranding that you know and love remains constant. And so you can do that just by turning user visible if you build your MSI. All right, I've got another poll that I'd like to pop for everybody, and that is, what's your biggest pain point with backup management? And so I've shown you a few different things: deploying software, upgrading software, modifying backup policies, and then testing the recoverability of backups. Which of these is your biggest pain point when it comes to administering your backup software today?
So Derek here, and to touch on Roy's question about a complete remote site situation where maybe Active Directory or a group policy is not going to help you because you're not logging into the network. Active Directory for this technology is really just a mechanism to push out the software. So the account creation is based on when the user actually logs into the system. So if you have your template of just Windows username, which is all that means, and some other code, then that's the username that you created. What we haven't built into the UI is the ability to send out an email with a link to download the MSI.
You can do that yourself.
But you could just email out the MSI to all your users, and then this will all happen. And again, it's all happening silently. So when Ken demoed the remote update, the user's not going to see an interface that says this software is updating or this software is running a backup, which has been a big distraction factor for a lot of users. You know, they don't need to know that the backup's running. It's the IT's department to be responsible to making sure that it is.
And Derek makes a great point. Using the standard Windows installation infrastructure, you don't need to use Active Directory for pushing it out. You can use anything that can distribute an MSI. So if you're using, you know, Kaseya or some other RMM that can deploy MSI packages, which is most of them, then you can use our MSI builder and drop it out through that. So Roy, you're using any technology that helps you do mass deployment of software? Question mark. And while Roy's thinking about that, I'll push on to our last video. Another very commonly requested tool the ability to do a centralized admin recovery for users without knowing a user's password. So in other words, I'm the IT guy. I get a request that Roy's using Continuum. So Roy, you can use Continuum to push out MSIs. So you use our system to build the MSI, push it out through Continuum instead of AD. Centralized recovery. So the scenario is you get a request to recover the data for employee 3 who has lost his data, and he also doesn't know his password for his account. And you don't want to reset the password to his account and break things. You just want to do the recovery in your shop and take the data to him. Very common. So we've built in a new login as admin functionality. So you can see using the client software. I think this video is a little bit grainy, but I go ahead and I click login as admin, and then on this screen I'm going to log in using my dashboard credentials, not backup account credentials, but dashboard credentials, and specify the user I want to log in as. The client software is then going to impersonate that user for a one-time recovery session. So I'm now logging in for an account that I don't know the password of, but sits beneath me in my entity. I've got the admin creds. You can see the branding kicked in. I'll move across the classic view, and this will take a second to refresh, and there you go. This is our demo environment here in the office. So there's all of the devices that are on that particular account that I'm impersonating. So now I can do a recovery right here in my environment. So it dramatically simplifies centralized admin-based recovery. And where this is going next is the ability to actually do a push recovery. So imagine that you're in the cloud and you can say, I want to recover data from computer 1, and I want you to push it down to computer 7, and that whole time you're actually in from a third computer. So that's going to be the next iteration of this technology, but just really beefing up the administrative recovery experience as well.
And to elaborate on that point more, the basis of EndGuard is that it's running silently. But of course you have your executives and your managers or your remote workers who are going to need recovery access to their own account, which you can give them. And what we've changed with EndGuard is that when you give account access to an end user, they don't have the ability to change the backup set because the dashboard policy overwrites whatever they change, and they don't have the ability to delete data from the backup set. And because our focus is on a one-to-one account-to-user relationship, they're not viewing other people's data. So now you can securely provide access to your end users without fear of them deleting, whether it was accidental or malicious, or accessing other users' data.
Yeah, Derek highlights a thing that I missed. So with regular user access to the system, they can change the backup settings and they can delete data from the system. With EndGuard, if you enable user visible, the delete functionality is removed from the client software. So even though it's user visible and they can open the software and they can do their own recovery, they can't delete data, which is really important in corporate deployment for regulatory compliance. And particularly important where, for example, you've got SARBOX or HIPAA compliance being relevant to the environment. All right, so that brings us to the end of the feature highlights and demo of EndGuard. I've got a question here for you. We went through quite a few different features. I'd like to know which of these is most exciting for you, which of these is the most valuable to you. And the 4 we picked was remote wipe, geolocation of devices, mass deployment, and then the silent operation or the limited user mode Derek was just talking about, where users can't delete. "71% of you are saying silent operation, 25% of you, oh, it's changing. Perhaps I'll hold my commentary. But only half of you have voted. 71% of you have voted. Got a few stragglers. And again, everybody, you're shaping our roadmap right now, so do vote. 81% of people have voted. So 0% of you said geolocation, which is interesting. 24% of you are saying remote wipe. 29% of you are saying mass deployment. 47% of you are saying silent operation, which is really interesting data. I'll give you a few more seconds to vote or forever hold your peace. Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into the Q&A section. Just another Glenn Zucker saying everything's important, he couldn't choose. All right, Glenn. Glenn's a special partner of ours who's been instrumental in helping us actually design a lot of these features from concept, all the way through now that we've released them. So didn't realize you were on the line, Glenn. Great to have you here. A little update for those of you, we've increased our data center footprint, so we've now got data centers in all these locations. So for our American partners, that may not be of as much interest, but for our international partners, we've now got facilities in Johannesburg, South Africa. We've got a facility in London, United Kingdom. We've always had one in Toronto, Canada. Okay, so we're going to move into the Q&A section of the webinar now. And so this is a free-for-all. Please ask me any question you like. I'm going to go back and answer a few of the questions that have already been asked, but please don't be shy. All right, so Daniel asks, so are these new user settings only available to EndGuard subscription or those roll back to online backup? Daniel, EndGuard is a new product for partners that costs $100 a month for 100 devices. So it's basically $1 per device per month. We recommend you sell it for $3 to your customers. So it's not included in your subscription to SOS Business. And you can talk to our partner specialists or your account manager because we're running some great introductory specials. I should also note that next week, right from within Dashboard, you'll be able to do a free trial of EndGuard, so you'll be able to start using it for free and really see the value it adds to your business during that free trial period. Okay, Timothy has a question about remote wipe. Does it wipe the entire device or just the company data? Timothy, that's a great question. So right now, it only wipes data that matches the policy on the machine in question. So if you've set up a policy to only do Word docs, Remote Wipe will only delete Word docs. So if you wanted to delete everything, you would set up a policy that does everything, backs up everything, and then you would delete that. However, in the weeks ahead, like within, say, 3, we'll be releasing the nuclear option. So you'll have a selective Remote Wipe and then a truly nuclear format the device and render it unbootable option. And that's coming in just a few weeks. Hope that answers the question, Tim. Roy writes, all those features are important, but I think a lot of us are new and need to deploy. Understand. Daniel writes, will EndGuard now or in future allow for immediate backup after a file has been worked on? Right now, backups only run when scheduled. Is there a roadmap to allow when a file is closed to real-time backup when the internet connection is available? Daniel, I'm glad you asked that question. That technology and function is actually available right now in the spot you have. We just do a poor job of displaying it in the user interface. It's called our Live Protect feature, and you should talk to our support folks about how to enable it. And we need to do a better job of highlighting that functionality right within the GUI. So Derek's furiously taking down a note to put that on the roadmap. Almondo has a question. Why the disable feature resides only with EndGuard and not with SOS Business? I don't understand. Which feature you're talking about? Joby writes, what implication will EndGuard have on mass offering like the telco subscribers, especially SOS, that we're in the process of pitching? So if it were me, I'd be using EndGuard. So for me, EndGuard makes the product offering incredibly exciting and really differentiated. I think so. If I were in your business, I would absolutely be adding EndGuard, pitching EndGuard to your customers. There's a great return on investment on EndGuard. Competitively, this sort of functionality usually goes for much more than $1 a device per month in the market. Our introductory pricing is $1 per device per month. So yeah, I'd be adding EndGuard to your partnership with us while we're running that introductory pricing offer. Roy writes, when will there be a real-time backup to a local device so we can quickly restore? That's a good question, Roy. That's not on the roadmap for today, but we do have a lot of functionality around the disk-to-cloud moniker coming in the pipeline. And so you know what, Roy, you could do me an enormous favor. If you're not a member of the partner advisory community, please join and go onto the forums and post a question on the forum so that we can deal with it properly and roadmap it. And for those partners on the line today who do not know what I'm talking about when I talk about the PAC, the Partner Advisory Community, it's an opt-in community that we run. We run it via the support system, so support.infrascale.com. And in that, there's a set of forums where you can request features, vote on features, where we show you the roadmap, where we run polls and surveys, and again, you can literally vote on the roadmap. The PAC it used to be very, very busy, and when partners used to participate in it all the time, it's declined a little bit, but I'm on a mission to really bring it back. So Roy, I'd love you to go and post that very question in the PAC, and we'll get you a proper answer through that system. Daniel writes, sorry, can you repeat what that feature name that allows real-time? I didn't catch what to ask support. Oh, Daniel, real-time backup is called Live Protect. Armando wants to know why we didn't put the disable delete functionality into the SOS business product. Armando, that's part of the remote control infrastructure. That's part of EndGuard, so it's just the way the software was written. But you know, I think you'll see that there's a great ROI on EndGuard, and this is a really important point. You can use EndGuard to control machines running SOS business. So EndGuard's an endpoint product, but it's actually pretty handy to assign a seat to a server. So if you're backing up Exchange or SQL, you can actually use EndGuard to manage and control those devices too. So although it's focused on endpoints from a marketing and sales perspective, the technology will actually overlay nicely with SOS business. They're better together, so to speak. Jacob writes, how do we sell EndGuard within a private cloud environment? Jacob, there's no difference. You just sell it as I've been pitching it here today. You know, EndGuard will work from your private cloud node. All right. Well, we don't have any more questions on the line. Please do ask some more. We've got 6 minutes left here, and I'm going to post my last poll. This is one we did to directly influence roadmap. What would you like to see us add to EndGuard in the coming months? So one idea that's been floated is using EndGuard to remotely manage shadow protect. Another idea that's been floated along the same sort of line is allowing EndGuard to really help you manage backup from servers. So, for example, implementing support for backing up Hyper-V. Or the next one is support for backing up VMware. Another idea that was floated was dashboard-based network throttling. So for laptop, I never let him use more than 1 megabit, as an example. And then the last one in the poll is dashboard-based push recovery. That's what I was saying earlier, where from dashboard, we just set up a recovery and have it run without ever needing to interact with the machines in question, just doing it all on the dashboard. So 50% of you VMware support is of most interest to you. Roy is writing on the chat that VMware and Hyper-V are of the same importance. Roy, just vote for one. Mac, Armando Wright has a good point. Mac has left central administration. Is it in the roadmap? Yes, Armando, it is. In fact, it's being worked on right now. And do we have a timetable? Within the next month, you'll see an update to the Mac client so that it's supported through dashboard. Interesting. All right, so 80% of you have voted, and VMware won by a mile. That's really interesting feedback. What other questions can I answer, everybody? We're at the end of the presentation. I'd love to be of much help as I can to partners. Roy is commenting that Shadow Protect is very important. Daniel has written, I saw that Windows Phone on one of the slides. What is the app name in the Microsoft Store? So Daniel, our file locker application is already in Windows Phone Store. The EndGuard backup application isn't yet quite there. Check back in soon and it will be. Peter writes, is Autotask integration on the roadmap? Peter, great question. Not specifically. However, we did a lot of work last year to basically make integration trivial. So there are a couple of different integration points within Dashboard. That means you can wire up Dashboard, Watertask, or any other RMM and PSA yourself within minutes. And so I really recommend that you contact support and ask them, how can I use push-based notifications, or how can I use basically the collection of technology is InfraConnect, if you can remember that. But it's a collection of technology in Dashboard, either using email notifications or outbound web service calls, which makes it very easy for you to wire up Dashboard into your PSA or RMM. And we can help you do it. So you can contact support, and they can help you do it. Roy asks, will you guys have a good roadmap to use the Shadow Protect licenses? We have tried making our own BDR devices, but need a better plan to get it done. So Roy, I'm not sure. I would need a bit more detail. Please go into the pack and post your question there, and I'll answer you, within 24 hours. Armando writes, another one, lost an opportunity with FileLocker. It was comp with Mac and iPad. I'm not sure what you mean, Armando. Oh, wasn't compatible. Okay, Armando, so we didn't have good Mac and iPad support for FileLocker in the past. We do now. I use FileLocker on my Mac all day long. I'm a guy. So we do now have support.
And we have a comment from one of our partners asking about the availability for a recording of this, because they got some clients that are going to be really interested and excited about all the new technology. Yes, so in the webinar section, we put up the previous recordings, and we'll do the same for this in the next 24 hours.
So that'll be on the infrascale.com site under resources. There's a webinar section. This will be posted there. If you would like the PowerPoint deck to use your customers, get in touch with your account manager or partner specialist, and they can give you the PowerPoint deck as well. All right, that brings us to the end of our allotted time. We'll stick around here for another few minutes and answer any questions if you've got them. Otherwise, thanks everybody for your attention and your participation. Tremendously value your feedback, and really looking forward to getting real-life feedback from you about EndGuard in the field. Next week, get into that free trial. You'll be able to enable it right from in Dashboard. Start using it. Participate in the pack. Roy just asked, where do I find the pack on the website? Roy, when you go to support.infrascale.com, if you're in the pack, you'll see a section called Partner Advisory Community. If you're not, just log a support ticket saying, I would like to be added to the Partner Advisory Community. And then a whole new section of the support portal will open up for you.
And literally after today's session, we're going to be adding a lot of new feature subject matter to have discussions on. So it's interesting to see the divide of Hyper-V and VMware. It's also surprising to see the lack of support in this group for remote management of Shadow Protect and monitoring of that system. So we'll be excited to get deeper into what it is we'll be able to do and in what time frames.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for your time and attention, and have a great day.